Okay, so today we're going to talk about house prices in March in the GTA. We're going to dive into the federal budget 2022, what that means for housing, and we're also going to discuss the brand new provincial bill 109, the More Homes for Everyone Act. All right, so let's get into that and more. Okay, welcome back everyone. This is Andy from Sweet Additions, where we help homeowners and investors create better housing and generate lasting wealth with legal additional suites. If you don't already have our guides, check them out at www.sweetadditions.com and download them there. All right, so this is going to be our monthly roundup of real estate prices as well as some news related to housing. Before I dive into it, I just want to let everyone know that we are running our Second Suites Profit Formula training program. We're going to have live sessions starting in mid-May, starting on the week of May the 16th. And if anyone who is interested in signing up for that, if you enroll now, we have our on-site workshop on Saturday, April 30th. So we're going to have more information at the end of this video, and we're going to have links below if anyone's interested. Okay, so let's dive right in. The first thing that we will discuss is the home prices. So March 2022. So here's the article. This is CP24. The average selling price of a Toronto home decreased slightly in March. So what we have right now, it's actually not Toronto. I think they made a mistake here. It's the GTA, and it's 1.299 million. A slight decline from February, 1.334 million. Okay, so let's look at the actual data from TREB. So for here's March, and so for March we have an average sale price of 1.299 million for all houses across the GTA. And I like to look at the year over year number. So from March 2021, it was 1.097. So what is that? That's 1.299 divided by 1.097. So that's an increase of 18.4% year over year. So obviously year over year is a good indication of kind of the overall trend. The other number I kind of like to look at also is the trend through the seasons, and if you look at if you compare this to February, so if I go from, let's say, February 2022 to to March 2022, there's actually a slight decline. Okay, so it went from 1.334 million in February 2022 to 1.299 million of for March 2022. Okay, so what does that tell us? There's a slight decline. Now, last year there wasn't actually a decline from February 2021 to March 2021. The market was still heated through the early part of the spring last year. And this year, it's gone down slightly, and I don't think that's any huge indication that there's some sort of a big crash or a big correction happening. However, it is clear that there is a different sentiment this year right now compared to this time last year. The sentiment last year still was that monetary policy, fiscal policy was going to remain loose, and interest rates were still going to be remaining low for an extended period of time, whereas the tone this year has really changed such that the Bank of Canada and the U.S. Federal Reserve, their intentions are that they are going to be a lot more hawkish in terms of increasing interest rates and tightening things up a little bit more. And a lot of that sentiment, I think it's making its way into the market, both in the real estate market as well as in the stock markets as well, especially in the US. Okay, so that's kind of the sentiment right now, definitely. And of course, the big reason is because of inflation. Inflation really is on the top of mind for everyone. And so if you look at the numbers, I believe in March it was around 5.4% in March in Canada, and in the US it was something like 8.5%. Let's see here. Yep. Okay, so inflation rates jumped to 8.5% in the US. Okay, so we have to pay attention to that, definitely. So here in Canada, as a result, interest rates have risen to they raised interest rates a few days ago by 0.5 to 1% in total now. So this is the overnight lending rate between the central bank and the commercial banks. So this is definitely a very hawkish tone happening right now, and it is because they are trying to push back against inflation. Now, the official inflation numbers in Canada are 5.4%, in the US is 8.5%, and that's the official number. Unofficially, I think, as I've mentioned before, the number is a lot higher. So this really, even the 1% overnight rate that we're seeing here from the Bank of Canada, that doesn't really make a huge dent on what's happening with inflation. I think they're going to continue to let inflation run red hot, but at the same time they have to react, because politically it's just it's just untenable for them to not do anything, given that inflation is actually so high and it's actually on the top of everyone's mind. So we need to actually pay attention to what the US is doing, especially this year in the US. It's a midterm election, so inflation is one of those things that they really don't want that to be a big issue politically. So really, the leadership there has no choice but to try to do the best they can, try to tame that inflation. I don't think it's going to have a huge effect on inflation, but I could be wrong that it could really come down because of some of the increased interest rates. So we'll see. And the reason why we should keep a close eye on the US is because, Canada's central bank will follow closely with what the US is doing, right? And ultimately, I think what this means is that they are going to keep raising rates until something, quote unquote, breaks. Okay. And when I say breaks, it means a significant correction or even a crash in the stock market, in the real estate market. However, I don't think they're going to let a really big crash happen, right? So what do I mean when I say a correction and a crash, right? And everybody's going to have a different definition of this. A correction may be somewhere in the neighborhood of 10%. That's my opinion. It's not something that is, set in stone somewhere. And a crash might be something that's 20% or 30% or even more. And I think there's a very good chance that, we're either going to have a flat real estate market this year, or there will be a correction, possibly 10%. That won't surprise me. And, that really, again, just takes us back a few months ago in terms of where the market was. And the reason why I don't think that there's going to be a huge crash is because we're really in a system right now where there's no ability for our financial system to withstand that type of a decline in asset prices and collateral, right? Because if you look at all the mortgages that have been issued in the past year and a half, 2 years, if the interest rates change, the banks have to roll over that debt into new loans. And if the collateral is not there, if it goes down by 30%, the banks are going to be insolvent. I don't think the government's going to allow that to happen. I think that if we do get my opinion is a correction of, let's say, 10%, that's going to be enough for the policy to switch to back from a hawkish tone to what they call a dovish tone. So I think that they're going to potentially loosen things back up at that point. So we don't know. We can't be 100% sure. My opinion is that this is probably the year where you're going to see the market, flat or potentially even go back a little bit because of all the excess that we've had in the past couple of years, right? Especially if things continue to open up, the economy continues to open up. and we wouldn't go back into a lockdown, for example. Okay. So that's really all I have to say about that, and we'll likely it'll be interesting to see where things go. So this spring, we're already seeing a lot more inventory in the housing market, and we're likely to kind of see that, and this might be a good opportunity this coming spring and summer to, if you are indeed looking for property, you might be able to get some deals out there. Again, as I've mentioned before, focus on those forced value appreciation strategies that we've discussed on numerous occasions. Okay, so next let's talk about this federal budget 2022 and what that means for housing. So on the website here, by the way, everything that I've shown you, I'm going to provide the links below so you can check them out for yourself. Read everything, do your due diligence, and form your own opinions. These are just my opinions. I could be 100% wrong. Okay, so federal budget 2022, you can see it on the Canadian website here, budget.gc.ca/2022. And I'm really just going to have a look at housing. I'm not going to look at all the other things, but at a high level, it's $31 billion in net new spending. And apparently there's $85 billion in spending room. I don't really know how that works, considering that our federal debt right now is nearing 1.2 trillion. So I guess every year they have an amount that they can allocate. They're allowed to have more and more debts each year. So let's look at it at a high level. So under housing, they separate it into three sections here. There's building, saving, and anti-flipping, banning foreign investments. So let's talk about building first. Okay, and I'll share my opinions on what this means and what potentially this means for housing. So the first thing here is $4 billion over 5 years to launch a new housing accelerator fund that is flexible to meet the needs and realities of cities and communities while providing support such as annual per door incentive or upfront funding for investments in municipal housing planning and delivery processes. This is kind of vague. I'm not really sure what this means. I think I've read somewhere that the goal is to try to speed things up at the municipal level, with the building and the planning departments. So $4 billion over 5 years, that's a lot of money. As someone who works closely with municipalities, with planning and building departments, as we do, building permits for our suites, for our small scale infill developments, I can tell you a lot of these things don't require money. It actually requires things to be eliminated. And, I'll just give you one example. They're throwing all this kind of money to try to speed things up. But there are a lot of very trivial fees and things like that as part of development. So, for example, some cities will implement what's called a parkland dedication fee when we do our 2-unit conversions. It'll be $1,000, and which is fine. They have to pay for these sort of things. But if you're going to be putting funding, why don't you put it into that? And then at the same time, you eliminate one process in the step, because what happens is that they'll tell us that we need to pay this fee, and then there's no mechanism to pay it easily. We have to have somebody hand deliver a check on site, things like that, and that stuff adds days to each, at least a day or a week or even 2 weeks to each project, and that really slows things down. And that's just one example. There's a ton of other things. So I would say that if you're going to be throwing money into municipal departments, you have to first look at ways where you can eliminate certain things to speed up the process. And, potentially some of these folks that are in these departments, maybe you can allocate these folks to another department that can, help alleviate some of the workload, as opposed to add additional layers of certain fees. Because if you're throwing in $4 billion anyways, why don't you cover those types of fees? That, to me, is something that makes sense. But I digress a little bit. That's just kind of what I see on the ground when I'm working directly with municipalities. Okay, so I'm going to try to move fast here. Second item here: ensure that more affordable housing can be quickly built. Budget 2022 provides $1.5 billion over 2 years for Rapid Housing Initiative, 6,000 new affordable housing units, 25% for funding going towards women-focused housing projects. Okay, I don't have any opinions on that. Sounds like a good thing. This one here is pretty good as well. Introducing a multi-generational home renovation tax credit, which provides up to $7,500 in support for constructing a secondary suite or for a senior or an adult with a disability. Okay, so if you are, there's going to be more details about this, but if you are building a second suite for an elderly person or someone with a special need, then there's up to $7,500 in tax credit. So that's ideal for any homeowners that want to add that to their existing houses. So that covers the building portion. Let's talk about the saving. Tax-free home savings account for first-time home buyers up to $40,000. So that's like the TFSA. The only difference is that the TFSA, that's non-tax deductible. So this is kind of like a hybrid. I think that's good for first-time home buyers. I just don't know with house prices where they are if that's going to make a big difference. Second item here proposes to double the first-time home buyers tax credit up to $10,000. That seems pretty good as well. And double the qualifying expense limit of the home accessibility tax credit, $20,000. So if you're creating items for home accessibility, I believe this is for renovations to make it more accessible for seniors. That's good. And we've talked about creating universal design options for seniors. So this is something that can be implemented. I recommend anybody looking into creating housing for seniors or people with special needs to really look into some of these programs. And then the last one here is anti-flipping and banning foreign investments. I think that this really is political lipstick. You know, the first one, flipping properties are taxed fully and fairly for any houses that are sold less than 12 months. I think for any investors or flippers that are doing anything that is within 12 months, they would be subject to full taxation anyways. So I don't think this really makes a difference. And then the other one is Canada is trying to ensure that real estate is owned by Canadians instead of foreign investors. Budget 2022 announces the government's intention to propose restrictions that would prohibit foreign commercial enterprises and people who are not Canadian citizens or permanent residents from acquiring non-recreational residential property. Okay, so there, I don't really know what this means. Also sounds kind of vague. Government's intentions to propose restrictions. So I don't know, will this be implemented? But in any case, this is also another thing that is very political, right? Foreign ownership of Canadian real estate. And based on my understanding, a lot of this quote unquote foreign investor is, not necessarily foreign, right? A lot of them, may have already have, recent immigrants that may already have permanent resident status, or they may have family member with permanent resident status. And I don't even think this applies to, let's say, students. Yeah, even if, let's say, you're a student, from another country, an international student, and your parents are paying your costs to live here, and if you're on your path to obtaining residency, even if, let's say, your parents have a lot of money and they buy real estate in Canada, that is not considered foreign if their kids are on the path to being a permanent resident. So again, I don't think this really tackles it, and I don't think that there are that many foreign investors that have zero interest in Canada in terms of living here and having a home here they're actually interested in the real estate. Okay, so again, I think this is political. Overall, there are a few good programs, I think, that are geared towards accessibility for seniors, and then also for some first-time home buyers. But for the most part, I think it's going to do very little to affect housing. If you were to ask me, I would say if you want to invest money into housing, definitely, of course, supply is going to be the issue. But I think investing in young people getting into trades is going to be important, and also into entrepreneurship. If, let's say, you encourage more young people to get into trades, and have more funding towards that, and then at the same time train those people who are in the trades to be entrepreneurs so that they can grow their company, right? So not only are they going to be good at the trade, let's just say, for example, the one thing that we constantly struggle with is finding good plumbers for our projects. Let's say you encourage a lot of young people to get into the plumbing trade, and not and really just change the perception of the trade, and then also teach them to be entrepreneurs, so that not only are they good at the plumbing skill, but they also have skills to build their team and train other young people to become good at that trade as well, and then they can grow the business and eventually have the trades needed. Like you can throw as much money you want at the problem, but if you don't have the skilled trades to do the work, we're not going to get anything built. So even if at the municipal level that we're able to get the building permits really quickly, if we don't have the trades to actually do the work, then that's going to be we're not going to be able to get the housing, right? A lot of people talk about automation and robotics and factories to build houses. Sure, that's great, and I believe in all that. However, we still have existing housing stock that are really old that needs to be upgraded, and AI and robots is not going to be able to fix that issue anytime soon. We need young people. We need more people to get into the trades, and then not only that, at the same time, train them to be entrepreneurs so that they can be leaders and they can communicate well and inform other people and train other people and get them excited about getting into the trades as well. Okay. That would be my recommendation if you were to improve things to bring more housing. And then, of course, the other thing is eliminating a lot of the processes involved in the municipal building approvals, especially in the building and planning departments, but then all the ancillary departments that surround them, right? Like engineering departments, forestry departments, parking departments, all those things. So we see this on a day-to-day basis when we're doing our projects. Okay, so that's my take on the federal budget 2022. I will provide links so you guys can go through that and read through it, dive deep into it to see if there's anything that can benefit you on that. Okay, the next item on our agenda here is to discuss the Ontario Affordability Task Force, okay, and Bill 109, the More Homes for Everyone Act. So the Ontario Housing Affordability Task Force was mandated by the provincial government to provide recommendations for how they're going to provide more affordable housing. So there was this task force that had reached out to various municipal stakeholders to provide a bunch of recommendations on what can be done to provide more housing. So I'm just going to give a high level as to what their mandate was. So this task force was hired by the Ontario government. They put together this 42-page document. You can read it if you like, but I'll give you the high level. So their goal is to build 1.5 million homes in 10 years. That's double the current pace. Okay, so 1.5 million homes in 10 years is what their goal is. At a high level, they want to increase density in neighborhoods of single-family homes. And I believe in the report, they made recommendations to make single-family zones have lots that will allow a minimum of 4 units. And if you have a single-family home, that's what, a single-family home lot, and you want to build just one house, that's fine, but you can't stop anyone else from building up to 4 units. That's in the recommendations. Okay, and the other items were spending less time on public consultations, imposing deadlines for handling approvals. Okay, so the provincial government has taken these recommendations, and according to this article here, London News Today, a local publication in London, Ontario, they have passed it on April 14th, which was yesterday. So this is now, the provincial government has received royal assent for legislation to support its More Homes for Everyone plan. And so that's right now legal, and their goal really is to build more housing faster. So let's talk about what are some of the things that they did implement. Now, we talked about that at the high level is the goal to increase density in single family homes. That's not something that they implemented. If you look at this article here from the CBC, this was actually from a couple of weeks ago, highlighting what the proposal was and what they're going to be doing. Basically, the province has said that municipalities are not ready yet for the higher density in single family zones. So what we talked about, having minimum 4 units, being able to build additional missing middle housing options, they have said that the city councils in areas like Toronto and Mississauga are not ready to push that yet. And the article also goes on to say that they believe the reason is because there is an election coming up in June, and the provincial government doesn't want to upset a lot of the voters in a lot of these areas like Toronto, like Oakville, like Mississauga, Burlington, who don't want to see the density in their own single family neighborhoods. However, we know that provincially that's their goal. They really want to increase density in single families, but I think they want to table that to after the election. So they're hoping to get elected, back in power, and then probably introduce this in the next bill. So at a high level, what are some of the things? Definitely, they're trying to tackle spending less time on public consultations, imposing deadlines for handling approvals. So if I just go back to the top of this page here, that outlines the More Homes for Everyone Act. Again, I encourage you guys, if you have time, to go through these just so that you have a better understanding of what the landscape will be for housing in the coming years. Less red tape, more homes, support timely municipal decision making. So I think they're really going to use both the carrot and the stick approach for making sure that municipalities act fast when it comes to approvals, right? Because as we know, things are very slow at the planning and building stage to get the actual permits. I believe that they will have penalties for municipalities who don't comply with a set deadline. Also, in some cases, if they don't respond within a certain period of time, automatically a project's going to get approved. So I don't know the details of it yet. I am going to go through them later on, but that's my understanding. That's one approach that they're going to be using. Community infrastructure and housing accelerator. To use this tool, municipalities would need a council resolution and formal request explaining the project rationale, the approvals sought, and any consultations. This tool will empower local communities to break down silos by removing barriers and accelerating downstream approvals at the request of the municipality. So these are tools to kind of help them speed the process up. Improve data collection to make informed decisions with our partners, investing in empowering Ontario Land Tribunal. So for those of you who aren't familiar with the Ontario Land Tribunal, this is something that has evolved over the past few years. It used to be the OMB, the Ontario Municipal Board. So if you wanted to build something and you were outside of the bylaws, you would have to go through, if it's a small project, residential project, you have to go through the Committee of Adjustments and go through a minor variance process. If it's a bigger project, you probably go to the Housing and Planning Committee for that city. And if you get rejected, you can appeal to the Ontario Municipal Board. On the other side of the coin, if you get approved and then there were other interests like neighbors who wanted to appeal your approval, they can also apply to the Ontario Municipal Board. So that has been changed a number of times. They changed it to LPAT, which was the Land Planning Act Tribunal, and then this is now called the Ontario Land Tribunal. And this really is focused provincially on trying to get projects approved quicker. And so this is, I guess they're trying to allow more funding because there is a backlog. I think, like 1,000 projects or something like that. So if let's say you were to build, a garden suite, okay? So let's bring it down to the most basic level. You want to build a second suite, you want to build a garden suite on your residential property. And because you're a couple of feet off for parking, you go to the minor variance process, and a bunch of neighbors show up. They sign petitions, and then the Committee of Adjustments, succumb to that pressure from the neighbors. Even though they should be only looking at the minor variance of parking, they actually are succumbing to the pressure of density, and then they reject your application. And if you want to appeal it, you can appeal it through the Ontario Land Tribunal, but that could take a year down the road before that gets done, right? So what I'm doing right now is I'm encouraging people to work on projects where they are within the current bylaws as it is read right now. Try not to rely on a minor variance process, because there is a lot of pushback from NIMBYs. A lot of neighbors don't want to see second suites and garden suites and things like that. So, or at least have a backup plan that you're still able to do the project without a minor variance. But if you get a minor variance, then that's a bonus, okay? Yeah, I'm not going to go through this. Again, I'm going to give the link for you guys if you want to read through it. Ultimately, I think that this is not something that has a lot of meat on the bone at this point. It's definitely a step in the right direction to kind of speed the process, but I think it is political. Once, if the conservative government, provincial government is back in power in June, I think that they're really going to introduce and push for the density in the single family zones and for more missing middle housing options. Okay, so we should probably expect that if they are going to be back on the job in June and July. Okay, so that covers the kind of the provincial side. We'll keep you posted on that. Okay, one thing I wanted to announce is that I will be speaking at the National Home Show this coming week with a bunch of other folks. I was invited by by Pam Hope of the Livable Canada team, and the focus is to talk about options for aging in place for seniors, and I'm going to be speaking with a bunch of other folks in the in the same kind of space of densification and adding additional units, and we're going to talk about some of the opportunities there. Okay, so here's a map that I found. So we actually will be speaking on the main stage here on the top, and so that's Monday. Easter Monday, April 18th from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. And then also we'll be repeating the session on Wednesday, April the 20th from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. as well. So kind of before and after that time, I will be hanging out at the Livable booth here, Livable Canada booth 3508. So if you happen to be there, come by and say hi. I'm happy to chat about aging in place and anything else related to adding additional suites or housing in general. And it'll be nice to see some of you in person if you are available and if you're planning to check out this event. All right, so that's all I have for you guys. I hope you liked this format, and please share in the comments below anything that I've discussed today with regards to where you think house prices are going to be based on the policy that we're seeing, what you think of the budget. What you think of what's happening with the Ontario housing plan. Share them below. I'll be sure to respond to everyone, and we'll see you on the next monthly roundup. Take care and have a good weekend. Hey guys, so we're bringing back our popular Second Suites Profit Formula training program with live sessions starting on the week of May the 16th. If you sign up by April the 24th, you also get the bonus on-site tour of our brand new 2-unit conversion in Brantford on Saturday, April the 30th, where we break down the entire renovation process and all the costs associated with it post-pandemic. We also have a $400 off early bird discount. Space is limited for the bonus on-site workshop, so sign up now so you don't miss out. In our training, we're going to cover the entire process of second suite investing and also get into some of the technical sides of garden suites. We cover financing, design and permits, step-by-step renovation process, strategies for renting out and refinancing, and a whole lot more. We also have expert guests on our sessions to answer your questions and bonus workshops of live projects and garden suites. You don't want to miss this opportunity to learn how to create amazing homes and generate lasting wealth. Check out the link in the description below to sign up with our early bird discount and get the bonus on-site training. Thanks very much, and we'll see you there.